Good morning. I'm David Breeden. I'm the Senior Minister at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, a historically humanist congregation, and this is Coffee and Wisdom, in which we talk about where humanism has been, where it is today, and where it may go in the future, and also some streams of thought that make up the American cultural and religious and philosophical themes. This week we've been looking at an article from the Oxford Handbook of Humanism by Dr. James Croft, who is the ethical culture leader in St. Louis, Missouri, an article called "What Does It Mean to Practice Humanism?" And his contention, and I very much agree with that, is that humanism is about what you do in the world, not what you think, but what you do in the world. Involved in that, he talks about the humanist commitments in the article, and those are the epistemic commitment, that is how we think meaning is made and how we can figure it out. The naturalist commitment, which is about science and observation. The ethical commitment, which is about how we decide experientially and historically how human beings can best act in the world and how we modify those through time. The self-actualization commitment, that is how we believe that we have to get a little bit better every day. The social commitment, that is to some kind of congregational and congregating idea of mutual support, and the justice commitment in the justice in the larger world. I want to talk today about a person that most people don't know about, Ethelred Brown. This week I've been talking about some very edgy people, edgy in that they ahead of their time, or edgy in that people just can't quite figure out in their own time what these people are even talking about. And certainly Ethelred Brown falls into that category. 1875 to 1956, he was born in Jamaica and is credited as one of the three leaders of Jamaican independence. He said, for example, "We are ready to govern ourselves. Give us the right. You have given Canada," speaking to the UK, "you have given Canada self-government. You have given Australia self-government. You have given New Zealand self-government. You have given Rhodesia. If you give it to these who are whites and refuse it to us who are not whites, then the only answer is that you still believe that black men are different and inferior," calling the UK out on its racism in its decisions of which of the various countries become part of the Commonwealth and which do not. He was also a religious explorer, and he began to read the work of the Unitarian Minister William Ellery Channing. There weren't any Unitarians in the Jamaica of his day, so he has to discover this through the print medium. And he talks very specifically about when he really reaches this moment of epiphany. He says, "I was a choir boy of Montego Bay Episcopal Church when the first ray of light broke through my Trinitarianism. It was Easter Sunday. We did not, as usual, sing the Athanasian Creed," that of course talks about the Trinity. "It was recited alternately by the priest and the congregation. The strangeness of the Trinitarian arithmetic struck me forcibly, so forcibly that I decided then and there to sever my connection with the church which enunciated so impossible a proposition." And of course, many Unitarians through history have had that realization that, this Trinity stuff, it doesn't seem to really be biblical. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And I think that I'm going to jettison that idea. And he joins those ranks. He was admitted to Meadville Theological School in 1907, but as soon as he got to U.S. shores, he was immediately deported back to Jamaica. And he had to wait until 1910 to actually get into the U.S. and attend the seminary. He was ordained into the Unitarian ministry in 1912, becoming the first black man to be ordained a Unitarian minister. He immediately returned to Jamaica, where he was hoping to set up Unitarian congregations, but he failed because the Unitarians would not support him in his mission field. And this becomes a story of his life, unfortunately. He did immigrate to the U.S. and came into Harlem, New York in 1920, founding the Harlem Unitarian Church, which he called a forum and a temple. He said religion is not an opiate. He was disagreeing with Marx here. Religion is not an opiate, but a stimulant, an incentive to noble deeds and a sustaining power in the hour of crisis. And at 1920, he walks right into the middle of the Harlem Renaissance, then known as the New Negro Movement, which was named by another humanist, Alain Locke. I'll talk a little bit more about him in a moment. And the Harlem Renaissance really counts as having occurred throughout the 1920s. It was really closed down by the stock market crash when the economic calculus changed for immigrants. But this was the first time that African Americans began in a serious way to meet and exchange idea with the Afro-Caribbean people and really come up with an idea of Western Hemisphere Blackness and the idea of freedom movements within the Caribbean. Sadly, the American Unitarian Association mistrusted Reverend Brown. I have worked in the archives of Meadville Lombard Theological School, and where the letters exist. They also are in the New York City Public Library. And unfortunately, the white establishment in Boston really thought that Reverend Brown was trying to somehow work a scam. So when he was legitimately asking for money to fund missionary work in the Caribbean, when he was legitimately asking for money to support his work in Harlem during the Harlem Renaissance, what a missed opportunity. But the AUA, the American Unitarian Association, always thought a little bit that he was trying to do something they didn't quite trust. And again, underlining the very much of the racism of the time, he was forced to, in order to be a minister in Harlem, to do various kinds of odd jobs. He played the organ in some various churches over time, and the elevator operator, which was a very racist position in the New York City of the 1920s. But he was able to sustain his church as a place for debate, social gatherings, and spiritual exploration. It was especially known for socialist and communist movements, the French-speaking Afro-Caribbeans coming out of Paris, talking about Marxism and freedom movements. So it also always was a little bit under suspicion by the various forms of U.S. government. But he was able to continue this forum through the Harlem Renaissance, the Great Depression, World War II, and into the early 1950s. The most important scholarly work on this is called The Origins of Black Humanism in America, Reverend Ethelred Brown and the Unitarian Church by Juan M. Floyd Thomas. It's not an easily accessible book. It costs a lot of money because it basically is scholarly and went directly into library holdings, and it's very difficult to get a hold of today, although some of it is available on the internet. A very important book because Mr. Floyd Thomas is not a Unitarian, and so he's looking at the ideas of Brown rather than, as you often do, a kind of apology toward him, but not really taking his ideas seriously, which again is a kind of form of racism, shall we say. You can read about him in Mark Morrison Reed's Darkening the Doorways, Black Trailblazers, and Missed Opportunities in Unitarian Universalism. I did mention Alain Locke a bit ago. Some of you know our affiliated clergy, Reverend Dr. Jay Hooper. He is doing a series for the Center of Education at the American Humanist Association about Alain Locke's imagination, developing an eye for being Black, queer, and free beyond sight. That's part of the, very much a part as an editor of the Harlem Renaissance. It began this week, but you can still register if you would like to find out more about Alain Locke and the amazing group of people who gathered during the Harlem Renaissance, really thinking outside the box and recreating the entire concept of Blackness in the United States. Thanks for listening today. You can tune in to our Sunday Assembly at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. This week, we'll be celebrating equinox, and I'll be asking what's hope, and I'll be talking about hope as a commitment. Join us tomorrow. We will be doing an extended discussion during this time, starting at our usual 9 and going a little bit longer, and talking about humanist commitment with humanists. If you would like to see more about First Unitarian Society, we are on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can help us out keeping the voice of humanism strong by going to firstunitarian.org/donate or to PayPal. Thanks a lot, and I will see you tomorrow.